A young billionaire discovers a boat adrift on the shore of a lake and is left speechless upon finding a little girl protecting a baby inside. What happens next completely changes his life. The reflection in the conference room mirror showed exactly what everyone expected to see. Ethan Morrison, immaculate in his custom-made Italian suit, dark hair meticulously groomed, and that look which had earned him the nickname by which he was known in New York's most exclusive circles, the Ice Lawyer. The temperature in the room had dropped several degrees since he began his presentation. It wasn't just the air conditioning, it was the effect his presence had. At 35, Ethan had turned his coldness into a trademark, a tool as sharp as any legal argument in his arsenal. "Gentlemen," his voice cut through the silence like a steel blade, "you have exactly two options." His long, well-groomed fingers slid over the Italian leather folder in front of him, a deliberately slow movement that made the five executives shift uncomfortably in their chairs. "You can accept the terms I just proposed, ensuring a discreet and mutually beneficial settlement, or..." Ethan paused deliberately, his blue-gray eyes scanning each face before him. "You can face a lawsuit that will drag your company's names through the mud for the next 3 years." The oldest of the executives, Richard Blackwood, a gray-haired man who had probably never been contradicted in his life, let out a nervous laugh. His fingers tapped restlessly on the polished mahogany table. "You can't be serious, Morrison. This is..." "48 hours, Ethan interrupted, closing his folder with a soft but decisive click. "That's how long you have to communicate your decision. This is absurd." Blackwood stood up, his face turning a deep shade of red. "You have no idea what you're proposing. Our company, your company," Ethan cut him off again, his voice even icier, "is about to face one of the biggest environmental scandals of the decade unless you accept my proposal." He rose with a smooth movement, his considerable height adding weight to his already intimidating presence. "And before you continue, Mr. Blackwood, I suggest you carefully consider your next words. After all, it would be a shame if the press discovered your extracurricular activities in the Cayman Islands." The ensuing silence was deafening. Blackwood visibly paled, collapsing back into his chair as though his legs had given out. The other executives avoided looking at each other, each lost in his own mental calculations about the implications of that veiled threat. While gathering his documents, Ethan allowed himself a moment of inward satisfaction. This was what set him apart from other corporate attorneys in New York. Not only did he know the rules of the game, he knew exactly which ones he could bend and which ones he had to break to get what he wanted. His reputation had been built not just on courtroom victories, but on a meticulously woven network of information and influence. Sarah, his legal assistant of 8 years, waited outside the room. As soon as Ethan emerged, she fell into step beside him with the familiarity of years of practice. The click of her heels on the marble floor matched his footsteps perfectly. "They'll accept," she remarked, not as a question but as a statement. "Before the next 24 hours, Ethan replied, adjusting the platinum watch on his wrist. It was one of the few personal luxuries he allowed himself to display. A limited edition Patek Philippe he'd bought after winning his first billion-dollar case. "Schedule a conference with the team for tomorrow at 7 a.m. I want all the documents ready when they call." "Already done," Sarah answered, her fingers gliding quickly across her tablet. "I also took the liberty of rescheduling your dinner with Senator Williams for next week. He seemed displeased." An almost imperceptible smile curved Ethan's lips. "The senator always seems displeased. It's his natural state of being." They crossed the main corridor of the office, where dozens of associate lawyers and staff pretended to be busy with their work while actually watching their boss pass by with a mixture of fear and admiration. The legal empire Ethan had built occupied 3 full floors in one of Manhattan's most prestigious skyscrapers, every inch exuding power and success. The late afternoon sun was beginning to set through the windows of the 47th floor, painting the office with golden hues that contrasted with the minimalist gray and black decor. Ethan paused for a moment, taking in the panoramic view of New York, his kingdom of glass and steel. Far below, the city pulsed with its characteristic energy, millions of lives interwoven in a frantic dance of ambition and survival. That was when the memory struck without warning, as it always did. The smell of damp earth filled his nostrils. He was 8, and the rain fell mercilessly outside. The house was silent, too silent. "Mom," he called, his small voice echoing through the empty rooms. He climbed the stairs, checked her bedroom, the bathroom, then went back downstairs. The silence was his only answer. In the kitchen, he found the note on the table. His hands trembled as he picked it up. There were few words, hastily written. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. One day you'll understand." The paper was stained. Tears, he realized later, not his, but hers. He stood there, holding that piece of paper that had just destroyed his world, while the rain kept falling outside. His father found him like that hours later, still clutching the note as if it were a lifeline in an ocean of confusion and pain. Ethan clenched his fists, pushing the memory away. 27 years later, and that yellowed paper still had the power to make his stomach twist. But he had turned that pain into fuel. Every case won, every million earned, every rung climbed on the ladder of success was proof that he had overcome abandonment. The soft click of heels on marble announced Sarah's approach before she spoke. "Anything else for today?" "No." He grabbed his coat from the designer coat rack. "I'm going out for a walk. But you have a video conference with Dubai at reschedule." That was all he said before heading to the private elevator. The ride down to the garage was made in absolute silence, the elevator descending smoothly through the 47 floors. In the impeccably maintained but climate-controlled underground garage, an impressive collection of luxury cars awaited. Ethan passed them, the Bentley, the Rolls-Royce, the McLaren, until he reached his favorite, an Aston Martin DB11 in a deep shade of midnight blue. Minutes later, the car was gliding through the streets of Manhattan like a silent predator, leaving the city's bustle behind. The traffic, normally a nightmare at this hour, seemed to part for him, as if even the other drivers could sense his aura of authority. There was a place he always went when he needed to clear his thoughts, a spot he'd discovered by accident years ago. A lake surrounded by trees on the city's outskirts, a small island of tranquility amidst urban chaos. It was one of the few secrets he kept to himself. Not even Sarah knew about this refuge. The sun was now barely clinging to the horizon, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of the water. Ethan parked the Aston Martin in a discreet spot shielded by trees. He loosened his Italian silk tie, something he would never do in public, and began walking along the lake's shore. His handmade shoes weren't suited for the uneven ground, but that had never stopped him. Here, away from prying eyes and expectations, he could just be Ethan. Not the ruthless billionaire, not the feared attorney, just Ethan. The boy who one day woke up to find he wasn't enough to make his own mother stay. The irony did not escape him. He had built an entire life proving his worth, amassing more money than he could spend in 3 lifetimes, earning a respect bordering on fear. And for what? For whom? Business magazines called him New York's most eligible bachelor. But the women who approached him were more interested in his empire than in him. His steps led him farther than usual that afternoon. The twilight painted the sky purple and orange, reflected on the lake's calm waters. It was the kind of beauty that should bring peace, but to Ethan, it only highlighted the emptiness. His triple penthouse, his car collection, his professional conquests, all felt hollow under that dying light. He stopped for a moment, picking up a smooth stone and skimming it across the water's surface. It skipped 5 times before sinking, a skill perfected during lonely afternoons in his childhood, when he would hide at a lake near his father's house to escape neighbors' whispers and pitying looks. "You did it, kid," he murmured to himself, the words tinged with a bitterness that would surprise his courtroom adversaries. "You showed them all." But victory had a strange taste in his mouth, metallic like blood. The last light of day was fading when something caught his attention. On the lake's mirror-like surface, a shadow moved against the natural flow of the water. Ethan frowned, his eyes trained to spot anomalies in contracts, now focused on the dark shape that seemed to defy logic. It was a small boat, the kind used for recreational fishing, but its presence at that moment made no sense. The lake was closed for activities after sunset, a rule he knew well after so many years frequenting the spot. Moreover, there was something about the way the boat moved, as if guided by an invisible force. A sound broke the twilight silence, so soft it could have been his imagination, but Ethan had learned to trust his instincts, the same instincts that had led him to the top of his profession. It was a voice, a child's voice. "Shh, it's going to be okay." The words were nearly inaudible, carried on the night breeze like dry leaves. His first impulse was to take out his phone and call the authorities. That was the standard procedure, the safe action. The ICE lawyer would never directly involve himself in a potentially compromising situation. But before he could unlock his screen, another memory struck. It wasn't the usual flashback of the empty kitchen and his mother's note. It was something older, almost forgotten. Him, hiding in the dark basement of the house, wishing someone, anyone, would come find him. No one came. The boat continued its silent dance on the water, now closer to shore. The voice sounded again, a bit clearer this time, and Ethan realized they were comforting words repeated like a mantra. His Italian shoes sank into the muddy bank as he approached. Each step was a deliberate choice against everything he had built over the last 27 years. The ICE lawyer was melting, leaving only Ethan, the man who, despite all his wealth and power, still carried within him that abandoned little boy. The whisper turned into a muffled sob, and something inside him broke. Without a second thought, Ethan began descending the steep edge toward the boat. His silk tie, which had cost more than a minimum wage, dragged through the damp soil. His custom-made suit was already ruined by moisture and dirt. It didn't matter. As he approached the boat, the world around him seemed to slow down. Twilight cast long shadows over the water, turning the lake into a black mirror reflecting fragments of an ever-darkening sky. Somewhere in the distance, a bird gave one last song before nightfall. Ethan Morrison, the man who had built an empire on foundations of ice and indifference, stopped a few steps from the water. In that moment, suspended between his past and something he couldn't yet comprehend, he made his choice. He took a step forward. The cold water seeped into his Italian shoes as Ethan reached the boat. The sound of his movement must have alerted the occupants, because the whisper stopped abruptly, replaced by frightened, rapid breathing. "Hello?" Ethan called, trying to soften his usually authoritative voice. "Is anyone there?" A sudden movement inside the boat made the small vessel rock. For a moment, only the sound of water lapping against the wooden sides filled the air. Then, slowly, a small head emerged from the shadows. It was a girl. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old. Her light brown hair was tangled, and her big green eyes stared back at him with a mix of fear and determination that made something inside him twist. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling, "don't tell him you found us." Ethan froze. In 15 years of practice, he'd faced the toughest Wall Street executives, relentless judges, and brutal adversaries, but nothing had prepared him for the despair in that little voice. "Who?" he asked gently, keeping his distance so as not to scare her more. "Who shouldn't I tell?" The girl bit her lip, clearly debating whether she could trust him. Then Ethan heard it, a faint crying sound, almost inaudible. The girl immediately turned around, returning to the boat's shadows. "Shh, Noah," she murmured. "It'll be okay. I promised Mommy I'd take care of you, remember? Noah. A name." And judging by the sound of the crying. "Is that a baby?" Ethan asked, stepping closer to the boat. The girl reappeared instantly, her eyes now flashing with a protective fierceness that seemed absurd for someone so small. "Don't come near him," she warned. I know how to fight." Despite the gravity of the situation, Ethan felt an involuntary smile forming on his lips. "I'm sure you do," he said, raising his hands in surrender. "I won't hurt you. I just want to help." "I just want to help, son." His father's voice echoed in his memory. "But you need to talk to me. Your mother, she had her reasons." Ethan pushed the memory aside. This wasn't the time for his own ghosts. "My name is Ethan," he introduced himself, keeping his voice calm. "And you are—" Again, that hesitation, that calculation in eyes too young to carry such weight. "Lily," she finally answered. "Lily," he repeated. "That's a pretty name. And that's your brother, Noah." She nodded, unconsciously moving to block the baby from view. "He's only 6 months old," she explained, as if that justified her fierce protection. In a way, it did. "You two must be cold," Ethan observed, noticing how Lily's thin arms shook. "And hungry." "We're fine," she answered quickly. Too quickly. "You know, Lily," Ethan said, choosing his words with the same care he used in his most delicate negotiations. "Sometimes when bad people do bad things, we need to find help." Her eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand," she whispered. "He'll find us. He always does." "Who, Lily?" "Jack." The name came out like a frightened breath. "Our stepdad." The sound of glass breaking, drunken shouting. "Where's that ungrateful brat? Ethan, get over here now." Ethan took a deep breath, forcing the memories back into the dark place from which they'd escaped. "He hurt you?" Lily wrapped her arms around herself. "He changed after Mommy," her voice faltered. "After the accident." "What accident, Lily?" "The car," she swallowed. "Mommy was taking Noah to the hospital. He'd just been born. She said he wasn't breathing right." Tears now ran freely down her face. The other car was too big. "Mommy didn't see—" The baby's crying grew louder, and Lily immediately turned to him. Ethan seized the moment to edge closer to the boat, finally able to see inside. What he saw made his stomach twist. A tiny baby was wrapped in a thin blanket, his little face red from crying. Next to him was a Frozen-themed backpack, seemingly serving as a pillow. A few disposable diapers were scattered at the bottom of the boat, along with a half-empty package of cookies and an empty baby bottle. "How long has it been?" Ethan asked, his voice hoarse. "Since the accident." 6 months, Lily replied, picking Noah up with a gentleness that broke Ethan's heart. "Jack said it was Noah's fault. That if he hadn't gotten sick—" She shook her head. "But it wasn't his fault. Noah's just a baby." "And Jack? Does he drink?" Lily nodded slowly. "He always smells like the stuff Mommy used on my scrape when I fell. It stings my nose. Alcohol, of course." "And today?" Ethan pressed gently. "What happened today?" "He broke everything," Lily whispered, rocking Noah closer, "just like the other times. But today—" She shivered. "Today he said he was going to throw us out, that he couldn't stand looking at us anymore because we reminded him too much of Mommy. He tried to take Noah. I can't stand looking at you anymore." His father's voice, soaked in grief and whiskey. "You have her eyes. Why'd she leave you and take—" "So you ran away," Ethan finished softly. Lily nodded. "I found the boat. I thought we could go far away, but it got dark and cold, and Noah's hungry. And Her voice broke into sobs. "I promised Mommy I'd take care of him, but I don't know how." Ethan felt something inside him shatter, that last layer of ice that had protected his heart for so many years. Without hesitation, he took off his jacket and leaned toward the boat. "No." Lily drew back, clutching Noah. "It's okay," Ethan said gently. "It's just to keep you both warm." Moving slowly and deliberately, he held out the jacket to her. "See? It's warm, and Noah looks like he's cold." Lily looked from the jacket to Ethan, still hesitant. You're not going to call Jack?" "No," Ethan answered, a steely certainty in his voice. "Never. Not even the police?" Ethan paused for a moment. The logical, legal answer would be yes. It was his duty as a citizen, but— "The social worker will come tomorrow, son. I'll tell her we're fine, that we don't need help, right? I won't call anyone who could hurt you, he promised. But you have to trust me. Let me help, please. Something in his voice, maybe the same hidden pain she carried, seemed to convince Lily. Slowly, she let Ethan drape the jacket over her and Noah. It's late, Ethan said, noticing how Lily's eyes struggled to stay open. And you both need a safe place to sleep. We can't go back home, Lily murmured, the fear returning to her voice. No, Ethan agreed, but I know a place. A place where Jack will never find you. Lily looked up at him, and Ethan saw something there he hadn't seen in a long time. Hope. Promise? Promise you won't leave me, Dad? I promise, son. Never. Another broken promise in a life full of them. But this time would be different. This time he would be different. I promise, Lily, Ethan replied, reaching out his hand to her. I promise. After a moment that felt like an eternity, Lily took his hand. It was so small and fragile that something inside him clenched. Noah let out a tiny whimper of protest as she moved, and Ethan realized he would need to carry them both. May I? He asked softly, indicating the baby. Lily hesitated, her arms instinctively tightening around her brother. Do you know how to hold babies? A sad smile crossed Ethan's face. I'll be very careful, I promise. With a gentleness that would surprise anyone who knew him only as the ice lawyer, Ethan took Noah into his arms. The baby was surprisingly light, and his little face felt cold. He needs warmth, Ethan murmured, adjusting his jacket to cover the little one better. Then he extended his free hand to Lily. Shall we? The girl took one last look at the boat, as if she was saying goodbye to something. Maybe she was, perhaps to the last connection with her previous life, with her mother. Where are we going? She asked, her voice small but steadier now. To my home, Ethan replied, helping her out of the boat. It's a safe place, high up in the sky. From there, we can see all the city lights. Like a castle, something like that. As they walked back along the lake's shore, Ethan felt the weight of his decision. He was bringing two unknown children into his home, likely violating a dozen laws in the process. It was illogical, reckless, and potentially disastrous for his career. But then Lily stumbled, exhausted, and clung more tightly to his hand. Noah sighed in his sleep, nestling against his chest, and Ethan knew, with a certainty he hadn't felt since he was a child, that he was doing the right thing. The ice lawyer had found his Thor in two lost souls on the shore of a lake. And as night fell over New York, three broken hearts began hesitantly to find their way back to life. The private elevator doors opened directly into Ethan's triplex penthouse, revealing a space that looked like something out of an architectural magazine. Lily, still gripping his hand tightly, looked around with wide eyes. Wow, she whispered, her voice echoing slightly in the minimalist space. It's bigger than our whole house. Ethan observed his apartment through the girl's eyes. The designer furniture, the abstract art on the walls, the panoramic view of Manhattan through floor-to-ceiling windows, it all suddenly seemed cold and impersonal. Noah stirred in his arms, letting out a soft whimper. First, we need to take care of you, Ethan said, guiding Lily to the main living area. Are you hungry? Lily hesitated, but her stomach answered with an audible growl. A blush crept across her cheeks. I'll take that as a yes, Ethan smiled, and for the first time in a long while, he felt it was genuine. Why don't you sit on the couch while I get something for you to eat? But Noah, Lily began, her eyes fixed on her brother. You can keep him, Ethan assured her, gently transferring the sleeping baby back into her arms. The couch is really soft. You'll both be comfortable. While Lily settled with Noah, Ethan headed to the kitchen, an immaculate space of stainless steel and marble that he rarely used, preferring to order from the finest restaurants in the city. He opened the fridge and frowned at its sparse contents. A few bottles of imported water, a bottle of champagne, and leftover sushi from the day before. Damn, he muttered, closing the door. He'd need help, and he knew only one person he could trust at this moment. He picked up his phone and typed a message. "I need you now." "It's an emergency." Sarah's response came almost immediately. "On my way. Everything okay? Bring food and diapers." There was a long pause before the next message. "Just come." He returned to the living room carrying a glass of water and some cookies he'd found at the back of a cupboard. Lily was exactly where he'd left her, but her eyes roamed the space with a mixture of fascination and apprehension. "Here," he offered the makeshift snack. "It's not much, but we'll have real food soon." Lily accepted the cookies with her free hand, the other still wrapped protectively around Noah. "Thank you," she murmured, eating slowly, as though trying to make each piece last as long as possible. "You can eat them all," Ethan reassured her, taking a seat in the armchair opposite. "There's more." She nodded but kept the same careful pace. Ethan recognized the behavior. He'd done the same as a child after his mother left and his father started drinking. You never knew when the next meal might come. "Lily," he began gently, "you said Jack changed after the accident. Can you tell me more about that?" The girl stopped chewing, her eyes instantly filling with tears. "He was nice before," she said quietly. "He played with me, bought ice cream, made Mommy smile. And after, she swallowed hard. After he just cried and yelled and drank that medicine that made him smell bad." Noah chose that moment to wake up, letting out a weak cry that filled the room. Lily tried to calm him, but the baby seemed inconsolable. "He's probably hungry," she said, distressed. I couldn't get enough milk when I ran away." Ethan's heart clenched. How many times had she had to be the adult, taking care of her brother while her world fell apart? The sound of the elevator signaled Sarah's arrival. Lily shrank back into the sofa, clutching Noah. "She's a friend," Ethan quickly reassured her. "Someone I trust. She brought food and things for Noah." The doors opened and Sarah entered carrying several bags. She stopped abruptly at the scene before her. Her boss, the infamous ICE lawyer, sitting casually in his immaculate apartment with two clearly frightened children. "Ethan," she said slowly, "what the hell is going on?" "Sarah," he responded with a calm he didn't feel. "Meet Lily and Noah." Sarah blinked a few times, taking it in. Then her professional gaze softened as it fell on the children. "Hi, Lily," she said gently. "I brought some things for you." She began taking items from the bags, warm food from a nearby restaurant, baby formula, diapers, towels, children's clothes. "I didn't know your sizes," she explained, "so I got a few options." Lily watched everything with a mixture of longing and distrust. Sarah noticed and gave her a reassuring smile. "How about we give Noah a nice warm bath first? I bet he'll feel better afterward." "Do you know how to take care of babies?" Lily asked, still hesitant. "I have 3 nephews," Sarah replied. "The youngest is about Noah's age." Slowly, Lily nodded. Sarah approached carefully, as if dealing with a frightened wild animal. "Let's let the men prepare something for you to eat while we take care of this little guy." Ethan watched, impressed, as Sarah gently guided Lily and Noah toward the main bathroom. She had always been efficient, but seeing her handle the children so naturally was a revelation. While he heated the food in the kitchen, he could hear water running in the distance and, eventually, soft laughter. Something in his chest warmed at the sound. How long had it been since laughter echoed in his apartment? Sarah reappeared a few minutes later, as he arranged plates on the dining table he'd never used. "Lily is bathing Noah," she reported. "The tub is big enough for both. I left clean clothes for them." Then she folded her arms and faced her boss. "Now, will you tell me what's going on?" Ethan explained everything, the lake, the boat, Lily's story. Sarah listened in silence, her professional facade occasionally betraying flashes of horror and compassion. "My God, Ethan," she whispered when he finished. "This is complicated." "I know. Technically, This is kidnapping. I know. If anyone finds out. I know, Sarah, he interrupted, more harshly than intended. He took a deep breath, running a hand through his hair. I know, but I couldn't just leave them. Sarah studied him for a long moment. In 8 years of working together, she had never seen him like this. Vulnerable, uncertain. What do you need me to do? She asked finally. Investigate Jack. The accident. I want everything. Criminal history, debts, anything that can help us protect the kids legally. And in the meantime, Ethan looked toward the hallway where he could hear Lily softly humming to Noah. They stay here. Sarah nodded, already tapping on her tablet. I'll start now. But Ethan, you know you can't just disappear with them, right? Eventually, we'll have to involve the authorities. I know, he answered quietly. But not tonight. Tonight they need a safe place. Lily returned then, wearing an oversized t-shirt that reached her knees. Noah, clean and fed with the formula Sarah had brought, slept peacefully in her arms, wrapped in a soft towel. Come, Ethan said, indicating the table. Dinner's ready. Lily approached hesitantly, her eyes widening at the amount of food. All this, he confirmed, and after, you can sleep in a real bed. Can Noah stay with me? Of course, Ethan assured her. There's a room big enough for both of you. As Lily ate, slowly at first, then with more vigor once she realized no one would take the food away, Ethan and Sarah exchanged meaningful looks. There was a lot of work ahead, plenty of legal and ethical complications, but then Lily yawned, her eyes heavy with sleep, and all Ethan's worries seemed to diminish. One night at a time, that was all he could offer for now. Sarah left shortly after C, promising to return in the morning with more supplies. Ethan showed the children to the guest room closest to his, watching as Lily carefully placed Noah on the king-size bed. Are you sure no one will find us here? She asked, her voice small in the darkness. I'm sure, Ethan replied firmly. So you're safe now. He was about to leave when her voice stopped him. Ethan. Yes. Why are you helping us? The question caught him off guard. Why indeed? He had everything to lose and nothing to gain by helping two unknown children. It was illogical, reckless, potentially disastrous for his carefully built career. But then he remembered, the fear in her eyes on the boat, so like the fear he'd seen in his own reflection as a child, the way she protected her brother, just as he used to protect his younger sister before. Because, he answered softly, sometimes we need the help we never got. Lily seemed to ponder this for a moment. You were alone too? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Yes, Ethan admitted, for the first time in years allowing the old pain to show. Yes, I was. I'm sorry, she said, and there was a comprehension in her voice that no child should have. Me too, he replied. Now sleep. Tomorrow is a new day. He left the room with the door slightly ajar, the way his mother used to leave it when he was small. In the hallway, he leaned against the wall and closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the past few hours. His phone vibrated. A message from Sarah. I started the investigation. Something's off about the accident. We need to talk tomorrow. Ethan put his phone away without replying. There would be time for investigations, for worries, for plans tomorrow. Right now, the only thing that mattered was two children sleeping in his guest room, trusting him to keep them safe. For the first time in a long while, the silence of his apartment didn't feel so empty. Sarah entered Ethan's office looking pale, her tablet clutched to her chest like a shield. You need to see this, she said, wasting no time. Ethan looked up from the documents he was reviewing. 3 days had passed since he'd found the children at the lake. 3 days spent adapting his meticulously organized life to the chaos of caring for a 5-year-old girl and a baby. What did you find? Sarah slid the tablet across his desk. On the screen was a newly filed police report. Missing minors, Lily and Noah Thompson, ages 5 and 6 months. Jack filed it this morning, Sarah explained. He's playing the part of the concerned father quite well. Ethan felt his stomach churn. In the photo attached to the report, Jack Thompson looked every bit the model of a devoted stepfather. Neatly trimmed hair, dress shirt, anguished expression. Nothing to suggest the monster Lily had described. But that's not all, Sarah continued, swiping to the next screen. I dug deeper. Jack has an interesting record. Ethan began reading and felt his blood turn cold. Complaints of domestic violence from 2 previous marriages, assault charges that mysteriously disappeared, substantial gambling debts. How did he hide all this? Ethan murmured. Money, connections, Sarah replied. But here's the most disturbing part. The next page showed a medical report from Jack's ex-wife. The photos made Ethan clench his fists. Did she survive? Yes. She moved out of state, changed her identity. But here's the pattern. He always targets vulnerable women with kids. He shows up like a savior, the perfect man. Then the nightmare begins, Ethan finished. The sound of childish laughter drifted through the closed door. Lily was in the conference room turned makeshift play area, under the watchful eye of the building's security. We have to do something, Ethan, Sarah said, legally, and hand the kids over to the system, so Jack can use his connections to get them back. So what's the plan? Keep them hidden forever? Ethan got up and walked to the window. Far below, New York carried on at its frantic pace, oblivious to the drama unfolding on the 47th floor. You didn't see her eyes, Sarah. When she talks about him, it's like looking into a mirror from the past. Ethan! No! He turned sharply. I'm not abandoning them like... He stopped, taking a deep breath. Like I was abandoned. Sarah studied him in silence. In 8 years, she had never seen him so shaken. There are other ways, she said softly. We can build a solid case, use your connections to ensure their safety while we investigate. How long would that take? Days? Weeks? How long until Jack figures out where they are? As if in answer, his phone vibrated. An unknown number. Morrison, he answered, his voice automatically shifting to a professional tone. Mr. Morrison. The voice on the other end was soft, polite, dangerous. This is Jack Thompson. Sorry to bother you, but I'm looking for my stepchildren. I thought that maybe, given your reputation in family cases, but you could help me. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. How? I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson, but I'm not familiar with your case. A quiet laugh. No, interesting, because I'm almost certain I saw your Aston Martin near Lake Monroe on the night they disappeared. Ethan's blood ran cold. Sarah, noticing his tension, was already typing furiously on her tablet. Look, Jack continued, his voice now bearing a thinly veiled threat. I don't want trouble. I just want my kids back. I'm sure we can work this out. Discreetly. I'm not sure what you mean, Mr. Thompson. If you'll excuse me... You know, Jack interrupted. It's funny how accidents happen, isn't it? Like Claire's, their mother. One moment you're driving, the next. A significant pause. Well, you understand. The call ended. Ethan stood still, the phone still pressed to his ear. Ethan, Sarah asked, worried. He knows, Ethan said, his voice rough. Somehow, he knows. Impossible. We took every precaution. The lake. He saw me at the lake. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. And now he's threatening. A knock on the door interrupted him. Lily peeked her head in, her eyes bright. Ethan, I drew a family picture, she announced proudly. Want to see? He forced a smile. Of course, sweetheart. Just a minute. When the door closed, Ethan turned back to Sarah. Find everything. Every detail about the accident, every cent in his accounts, every skeleton in his closet. If we're going to do this legally, we need to make sure he never gets near them again. And in the meantime? Ethan looked at the door, where he could hear Lily humming on the other side. In the meantime, nobody touches my kids. Sarah raised an eyebrow at the possessive pronoun but said nothing. Instead, she grabbed her tablet and nodded. "I'll reinforce security," she said. "And Ethan, we need a plan B, if he really does know." "I know." Ethan headed to the door. "That's why we have to be faster than he is." Outside, Lily was waiting with her drawing, stick figures representing herself, Noah, and a tall man in a suit. "It's our new family," she explained simply. Something inside Ethan broke and rebuilt itself all at once. Family. It was a word he hadn't used in years. "It's beautiful, Lily," he said, his voice thick with emotion. While the little girl enthusiastically explained each detail of the drawing, Ethan made a silent promise. No matter what it cost, no matter how many laws he had to bend or favors he had to call in, this time, a family would not be destroyed. The digital clock on Ethan's office wall blinked 3:47 a.m., its bluish glow the only light apart from his laptop screen. Stacks of documents surrounded him like silent sentinels. Police reports, medical records, witness statements. Any page, any line, any word might hold the key to unraveling the mystery consuming him. His eyes burned as he reread for the 10th time the official report of the accident that killed Claire Thompson. The words began to blur, dancing before his exhausted eyes. Lateral collision, adverse weather conditions. Unidentified driver left the scene. "There has to be something here," he muttered, rubbing his eyes. In 15 years of practice, he'd developed a special talent for finding the tiniest inconsistencies in documents. A misplaced word, a misused comma. Sometimes that was all it took to bring down an entire case. But now he wasn't looking for loopholes for his billionaire clients. He was hunting the truth that could protect two defenseless children from a monster. A sharp cry cut through the night like a blade. Ethan was on his feet before he even registered the movement, knocking over some papers in the process. His instincts, newly awakened by unexpected fatherhood, led him through the dark corridors to the children's room. The soft glow of a star-shaped nightlight revealed Lily thrashing on the king-size bed. Her small body contorted in agony as tears streamed down her sleeping face. "Mommy, the big car, no!" "Shh, it's okay," Ethan whispered, sitting on the edge of the bed. His hands, used to handling legal documents and expensive pens, now moved with surprising tenderness to brush the sweaty hair from the girl's face. "It was just a dream." Lily's eyes flew open, disoriented at first. The panic in her gaze was so familiar, it made Ethan's heart ache. It was the same panic he used to see in his own reflection for years after his mother left. "Ethan." "I'm here," he replied, his voice softer than he'd ever imagined it could be. The next moment, she threw herself into his arms with desperate force, violent sobs shaking her small frame. In the crib beside them, miraculously, Noah kept sleeping, his tiny fists clenched next to his face. "It was the car again," Lily whispered against his chest, her words broken by sobs. "The big black car that hurt Mommy." Ethan froze, his lawyer's instincts immediately on alert. In the 2 weeks since he'd found the children, Lily had only vaguely mentioned the accident, always changing the subject when pressed. "You saw the accident, Lily?" he asked carefully, his heart pounding at the possibility of finally discovering the truth. She nodded slowly, her small hands gripping his shirt harder. "I was in the back seat." Noah wouldn't stop crying, he was so hot. Her voice trembled. "Mommy said we had to get to the hospital fast. She was scared. I'd never seen her like that." Ethan swallowed, fighting the wave of nausea that hit him. The thought of 2 children trapped in a car during a fatal accident. "And then," he encouraged gently, though he feared the answer. Then the big car showed up. It was so dark, like a huge shadow. Lily shivered. It had something shiny in the front, like a star. Ethan's heart pounded even harder. A star, like the emblem on a Mercedes-Benz. "Can you remember anything else about the car?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "It was pretty shiny." "Like the cars you have in your garage," Lily sniffled. "But it didn't stop. Mommy screamed, tried to turn the wheel." Her voice gave out. "There was a really loud noise, like thunder. Then everything got quiet, So quiet. He held her tighter, feeling his own tears threaten to fall. You were very brave, Lily. Very brave. They stayed like that for a long time, until Lily's sobs subsided and her breathing calmed. When she finally fell back asleep, Ethan remained, watching over her, his mind sorting through every new detail of her story. A black Mercedes, the distinctive emblem, a driver who fled the scene. Carefully, to avoid waking the children, he returned to his office. His hands trembled slightly as he typed a message to Marcus Chen, the private investigator he'd hired. Look for a black Mercedes-Benz involved in a collision on the specified date and time. Luxury model, probably S-Series, possible hit and run. Check for any unregistered repairs. The response came almost immediately, as though Marcus was also working through the night. Already on it, boss. By the way, there's something you need to see. Urgent. Very urgent. 20 minutes later, the private elevator announced Marcus's arrival. The former NYPD detective entered the apartment like a shadow, his steps silent, betraying his years of field experience. He carried a thick folder under his arm and wore an expression Ethan had never seen on his normally impassive face. "You're not going to like this," he said without preamble, placing the folder on Ethan's mahogany desk. "In fact, you're going to hate it." With a deliberately slow movement, as if delaying the inevitable, Ethan opened the file. The first page contained a black and white photo that made his world stop spinning. It was a Mercedes-Benz S-Class in black, from the previous year's model. The front of the vehicle had significant damage on the passenger side, consistent with a lateral collision. The photo's date was exactly 1 week after the accident that killed Claire Thompson. But it wasn't the car itself that made his blood run cold. It was the name of the vehicle's owner, printed in the cold, impersonal letters of the registration document. William Morrison, his father. This can't be," Ethan murmured, his own voice sounding strange to his ears. "There's more," Marcus said softly, as though delivering bad news to a grieving family, something he'd probably done hundreds of times in his former career. The car was taken to a private repair shop the day after the accident, paid in cash off the record. But he slid another photo across the desk. "My contact at the shop has a good memory and an even better security camera." The image showed William Morrison in all his arrogant glory, handing a visibly thick envelope to a man in overalls. His father looked younger in the photo, but his expression was exactly as Ethan remembered, that mix of arrogance and scorn that had been his trademark before the drink took over completely. "Damn," Ethan let slip, sinking into his Italian leather chair. The word seemed too small to capture the whirlwind of emotions swallowing him up. "There's another detail," Marcus continued, his professional tone barely masking his discomfort. "I checked phone records from that time. Your father made a call that night, right after the estimated time of the accident." "To whom?" Ethan asked, though part of him already knew the answer. Marcus slid another paper across the desk. The number was familiar. Ethan had seen it while investigating Lily's stepfather, Jack Thompson. The world spun around Ethan, the puzzle pieces clicking together in a pattern so horrific his mind refused to fully process it. His father, Jack, the accident. It was all connected in a sordid web of secrets and lies that reached far beyond what he'd initially imagined. "How?" he managed to ask, his voice nearly unrecognizable. "I'm still piecing it together," Marcus explained, taking a seat. "But from what I've found so far, your father and Thompson knew each other from the exclusive golf club where your father was a lifetime member. Thompson was deep in financial trouble at the time, mainly gambling debts to dangerous people. And your father, well, you know how he was with money." Yes, Ethan knew all too well. William Morrison had used his fortune as a weapon throughout his life, buying silence and loyalty in equal measure. How many times had Ethan witnessed his father fixing problems with a checkbook and a cold smile? A soft sound at the door made Ethan look up. Sarah stood there, her normally composed face now white as porcelain. I just got the bank records I requested, she said, stepping into the office with her tablet. Even at that hour, she was impeccably dressed in business attire. Ethan, the transfers. Your father's been making monthly payments to an offshore account linked to Jack Thompson. They started exactly 3 days after the accident. Hush money, Marcus commented, nodding as though confirming a suspicion. Why? Ethan asked, more to himself than to the others. Why would my father involve himself? Why would he? Because he was drunk, Sarah said softly, turning her tablet to show more records. I found his credit card transactions from that night. He'd spent the afternoon at the club drinking. The amounts were substantial, very substantial. Ethan closed his eyes, memories flooding his mind like a tsunami. How many times had he found his father passed out in his office at the mansion, surrounded by empty bottles of rare scotch? How many times had he heard the Mercedes engine roaring irregularly in the early hours as his father tried to maneuver into the garage? I need to see him, he decided abruptly, standing so quickly his chair almost toppled. Ethan, Sarah began, her voice full of concern. I don't think he killed their mother, Sarah. Ethan burst out, his voice echoing off the office walls. He killed an innocent woman who was just trying to save her sick baby, and then he bought the silence of the monster who's been terrorizing these children. Lower your voice, Sarah cautioned, glancing nervously at the hallway. The kids? Ethan took several deep breaths, forcing himself to calm down. When he spoke again, his voice was under control but filled with the icy fury Sarah knew so well from the courtroom. I'm sorry, but I have to confront him. I need to hear it from his own mouth. I need to understand. And then what? Marcus asked, his practical tone slicing through the tension. What's the plan? Ethan looked at the photos and documents spread across his desk, evidence of a tragedy that had connected all their lives in ways no one could have predicted. His gaze lingered on the photo of the damaged car, the envelope being handed to the mechanic, the bank transfers proving years of payoffs. Then, he said slowly, each word weighted with determination, we'll use this to ensure Jack never goes near those kids again. And my father. My father will face the consequences of his actions. All of them. We'll have to involve the authorities eventually, Sarah reminded him, always the voice of reason. There's no avoiding it with evidence this serious. I know. But first, Ethan picked up the photo of the damaged car, noting the exact details matching Lily's description. First, I'm having a very serious conversation with William Morrison. Want me to go with you? Marcus offered, clearly ready to act as security if needed. Ethan shook his head. No, this is something I need to do alone. He glanced at the clock, 5:12 a.m. The sun would rise soon, bringing a new day and changes that would forever alter the course of many lives. Sarah, can you stay with the kids? I don't want them waking up alone. Of course, she nodded, worry evident in her features. But Ethan, be careful. Your father has always been a manipulative bastard. Ethan finished with a bitter smile. Yes, I know. But this time he's not dealing with a scared boy who didn't understand why his mother left. This time, he's dealing with the ICE lawyer. As he packed the evidence into his briefcase, a soft sound stopped him. Lily was standing at the office door, Noah in her arms, both still drowsy. Ethan, she called, her voice small and uncertain. Are you leaving? His heart constricted at the fear in her voice, the same fear he'd felt so many times as a child. No, sweetheart, I just have some things to sort out. I'll be back soon, I promise. Pinky promise? She held out her little finger, a gesture they'd developed over the last few days. Ethan knelt in front of her, hooking his finger with hers. Pinky promise. And look, Sarah will stay with you. Maybe she can make those special pancakes you like. Lily's face brightened slightly, though her eyes still showed worry. Are you sure you'll come back? The question hit him like a punch to the stomach. How many times had she asked her mother the same thing, or Jack, How many broken promises had she heard in her short life? Absolutely, he answered, kissing her forehead. We're a family now, remember? And family always comes back. Minutes later, the elevator descended to the garage. Ethan clutched the briefcase, aware that it contained the proof that could destroy his father and maybe his own family in the process. The sun was just rising when he parked the Aston Martin in front of the Morrison mansion in Greenwich. The imposing estate, with its meticulously maintained gardens and Greco-Roman columns, seemed to mock everything he had discovered in the last few hours. His phone vibrated, a message from Sarah. Kids had breakfast. Lily drew a picture for you. Noah is smiling more today. Be safe. A second message from Marcus. Surveillance team in position. Give the signal if you need it. And one last one from Sarah. Don't let anger control you. Remember why you're doing this. Ethan took one last look at the briefcase on the passenger seat. Inside were not only the proofs of his father's involvement in the accident, but years of secrets and lies that had shaped their lives. This time, he muttered, adjusting his tie, you won't buy your way out of trouble, Dad. With determined strides, he crossed the stone walkway to the mansion's main door. The sound of the doorbell echoed through the house like a herald of the confrontation to come. As he waited, Ethan thought of Lily and Noah sleeping in his penthouse, trusting him to protect them. He thought of Claire Thompson, dead because she'd tried to save her baby. He thought of his own mother, who had left without an explanation all those years ago. It was time to find out how much of the ice lawyer had truly melted, and how much he still needed to do the right thing. Footsteps approached on the other side of the door. The moment of truth had arrived. The door to the Morrison mansion opened, revealing William Morrison, impeccably dressed even at this hour. His eyes, so much like his son's, narrowed at the sight of Ethan. This is a surprise, he said, his tone calculatedly casual. I didn't know you remembered where your old father lived. We need to talk, Ethan replied, his voice cold. About a black Mercedes. William's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. So quick anyone else might have missed it, but Ethan was not anyone else. He was the son who'd learned to read every micro-expression on that face during years of lies and manipulation. Come in, William said at last, stepping aside. Care for a drink? It's 6 in the morning. Never stopped me before. William smirked, the same smile he used in court. But you've always been the goody two-shoes of the family, haven't you? Ethan followed his father into the study, a sanctuary of mahogany and leather that smelled of expensive scotch and old secrets. The walls were covered with diplomas and photos, William with judges, politicians, celebrities. None of them featured his family. So, William poured himself a glass of scotch, ignoring the time. What's this about a Mercedes? In response, Ethan opened his briefcase and spread the photos on the mahogany desk. The damaged car, the repair shop records, the bank transfers. William's glass froze halfway to his mouth. Interesting reading, Ethan commented. Especially the part about monthly payments to Jack Thompson. You don't know what you're talking about, William replied, but his voice had lost its usual arrogance. No, Ethan leaned in. Then explain. Explain why your car was damaged on the same night Claire Thompson died, trying to get her sick baby to the hospital. Explain why you've been paying a small fortune to a man who's been tormenting 2 innocent children. You've always been too dramatic. William took a long sip of his drink. Just like your mother. Don't mention her, Ethan growled. This is about you, about what you did. William studied his son for a long moment. What exactly do you want, Ethan? The truth. For the first time in your life, Dad, I want you to tell the truth. William walked to the window, gazing at the perfectly trimmed gardens stretching out of sight. When he spoke again, his voice was different, older, wearier. I was drunk, he began. I'd spent the afternoon at the club, drinking with some associates. Thompson was there, he was always there, trying to make connections, secure loans to cover his gambling debts. He paused, taking another swig. The night was dark, it was raining. I should have called a driver, but he shrugged. Pride, maybe, or stubbornness. You know the Morrisons. Keep going, Ethan demanded, his voice taut. I saw her car too late. I was driving too fast, had drunk too much. William closed his eyes. I heard the impact. I saw her car spin. And you fled, Ethan finished, bile rising in his throat. I panicked. Thompson saw me. He was on his way home, saw everything. He followed me here. William laughed without humor. He offered a deal. He'd keep quiet about my involvement in exchange for financial assistance. While he abused the children, Ethan stood up, anger trembling in his voice. While he turned their lives into hell, you kept paying to protect your reputation. I didn't know about the kids, William protested weakly. Lies! Ethan slammed the desk so hard the glasses rattled. You knew. You always knew. But you didn't care, just like you didn't care when Mom left. Just like you didn't care when... He stopped abruptly. Decades of unspoken hurt weighing the air between them. What are you going to do? William asked finally. What should have been done from the start, Ethan replied. I'm going to the police. Don't be ridiculous, William scoffed. You know what that would do to the family name, to your own reputation? What reputation, Dad? The one of being as cold and calculating as you. Ethan shook his head. Maybe it's time to melt some of that ice. Think carefully, son, William approached, his voice taking on that persuasive tone that had convinced so many juries. We can handle this another way. I can increase the payments to Thompson, send him away. We can get legal custody of the children without involving the police. For a moment, a brief, terrible moment, Ethan considered the offer. It would be easier, cleaner, more Morrison. Then he remembered Lily, trembling in his arms after yet another nightmare about the accident. Noah, starting to smile for the first time since Ethan found them. Lily's words that morning. Are you sure you'll come back? No, he said firmly. No more covering up your mistakes, Dad. No more lies. You're throwing away everything we built, William warned. Years of hard work, connections, influence. No, Ethan cut him off. I'm building something new. Something better. As he left the mansion, the sun was already high in the sky. His phone vibrated. Another message from Sarah. Lily asked if you'll be back for lunch. She made a drawing of her family. You're in it. Family. The word echoed in his mind as he drove back to the city. Not the family his father had built with money and lies, but something real, something true. In his office, hours later, Ethan looked out at the city through his windows as he spoke on the phone. Dr. Elena Martinez, this is Ethan Morrison. I need your counsel on a family law case. Yes, it's urgent and strictly confidential. Elena was known as the best family lawyer in New York, with a particular reputation for protecting children in abusive situations. If anyone could help him navigate what lay ahead, it was her. I can see you in an hour, she replied. Bring all the documentation you have. After hanging up, Ethan methodically organized his evidence, the accident records, proof of his father's involvement, documents on Jack's violent history, the suspicious bank transfers. Sarah entered the office with more folders. I found Noah's medical records from the night of the accident, she said, and 3 more domestic violence complaints against Jack that were mysteriously dismissed. Good, Ethan nodded. I want everything documented, every detail. We can't leave them any room to escape this time. How did it go with your father? As expected, Ethan replied curtly. He confessed, but still thinks he can buy his way out. And the kids? Ethan looked toward the corridor, where he could hear Lily's laughter from the makeshift playroom. I need to tell them, he said quietly. I need to prepare them for what's coming. Want me there? Please. They found Lily sitting on the rug, showing Noah a picture book. The scene was so domestic, so normal, that for a moment Ethan hesitated. How could he disturb this newly found peace? Lily, he said gently, Can we talk for a bit?" The girl looked up, smiling when she saw him, a smile that still surprised him, open and trusting, so different from the fear he'd seen in her eyes on that first night by the lake. "Look what I drew," she exclaimed, running to grab a piece of paper from the table. "It's us. You, me, Noah, and Sarah, and there's even your fancy car." Ethan sat on the couch, pulling her onto his lap as he studied the drawing. The stick figures smiled back at him, all holding hands. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," he said, his throat tight. "But we need to talk about something important." Lily immediately tensed in his arms. "Is it about Jack?" "Partly," Ethan answered honestly. "It's about doing the right thing, about telling the truth to people who can help us." "The police," she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "Yes, but not yet. First, Sat, we'll talk to a friend of mine, a very special lawyer who helps kids like you and Noah." He hugged her tighter. "She'll help us make sure you're safe, so no one can ever hurt you again." "But," Lily bit her lip, "what if Jack gets mad? He always gets so mad when—" "He won't come near you," Ethan promised firmly. "Never again." "There's something else." He took a deep breath. "About your mom's accident. We found out who was driving the other car." Lily went very still in his arms. "The big car, with the star." "Yes." Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. It was my father." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, unexpectedly, Lily turned in his lap and touched his face. "You're sad," she said, not asking. "I am," he admitted, "but I'm also determined to do what's right, like your mom would have done." "She always said lying is wrong," Lily said softly, "even when it hurts to tell the truth." "Your mom was a very wise woman," Ethan smiled sadly, "and very brave, like you." "I'm scared," she confessed. "Me too," Ethan admitted. "But you know something. Sometimes we have to be brave even when we're scared, and we're not alone in this. We have Sarah and Dr. Martinez and lots of other people who will help us." "Promise you won't leave me?" Lily asked, her voice tiny. "I promise," Ethan answered without hesitation. "We're a family now, remember. And this time we're going to do everything right, with the truth." Sarah, who had remained silent, stepped closer with Noah in her arms. "How about we make something special for dinner?" she suggested. "Maybe that pasta you like, Lily." The girl nodded, but she still clung to Ethan. "Can it be spaghetti with meatballs?" "Of course," Sarah smiled. "And then we can all watch a movie together." As Lily helped Sarah in the kitchen, Noah safe in his playpen, Ethan thought about all the changes the coming days would bring. There would be interrogations, depositions, legal proceedings. His father might never forgive him. The Morrison name would be forever tarnished. But as he saw Lily's grin, as he heard Noah's laughter, Ethan knew it was worth it. One night at a time, that was all he could offer. His phone vibrated. Another message from Elena Martinez. "Office ready for you tomorrow. I've already contacted some trustworthy judges. Let's do this right, Ethan." It was time to prepare for the final act. Time to transform the ice lawyer into something more. Someone who chose truth over power, love over tradition. It was time to be the father those kids deserved. The police station felt bigger and more intimidating than Ethan remembered from his previous professional visits. Perhaps it was because this time he wasn't there as the powerful ice lawyer, but as a man bearing truths that would forever change multiple lives. "Are you sure about this?" Sarah asked in a low voice, shifting Noah in her arms. The baby slept peacefully, oblivious to the tension around him. Lily held Ethan's hand tightly, her small fingers trembling slightly. She wore her best dress, blue with little white flowers, and her hair was carefully braided into 2 plaits, courtesy of Sarah that morning. "Absolutely," Ethan replied, his voice steady despite the storm in his chest. Elena Martinez, the family lawyer they had consulted, awaited them at the entrance. Her stern face softened upon seeing the children. "Everything is set," she reported. "Detective Chen is expecting us. She has experience with sensitive cases involving children." Ethan nodded, once again grateful to have Elena by his side. Her reputation as a fierce protector of at-risk children was well-deserved. Detective Chen was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a professional bearing. Her office featured children's drawings on the walls and a small basket of toys in the corner, details meant to put children at ease. "Hi, Lily," she smiled, crouching to the girl's eye level. "That's a pretty dress." Lily half hid behind Ethan, but she offered a small smile in return. "We can start with you telling me a little about your mom," Chen suggested gently. The next few hours tested everyone's courage and patience. Lily, initially reluctant, began to open up under the detective's gentle questioning. Her voice trembled when describing the accident, strengthened when talking about caring for Noah, and finally broke when detailing Jack's abuse. Sarah took the children to a special room with social workers, while Ethan presented his evidence. The documents he'd gathered painted a clear, devastating picture. The accident, the cover-up, the years of concealed abuse. "This is extensive," Chen remarked, flipping through the records. "And you say your own father?" "William Morrison," Ethan confirmed calmly. "I have his confession recorded." The detective's eyebrows rose. "I take it he's unaware of that." "No, but I also won't deny I recorded it illegally." "Brave of you to admit that." "I'm tired of lies and cover-ups," Ethan answered simply. Raised voices in the hallway interrupted their conversation. The door to the office flew open, revealing Jack Thompson, his face red with anger. "Where are my kids?" he demanded. Ethan stood instantly, his body tense like a coiled spring. Elena and Chen also moved, the detective already reaching for her radio. "They're not your kids," Ethan replied icily. "Ah, the savior," Jack sneered. "The rich lawyer who thinks he can buy a family. Not so different from your father, huh?" "Mr. Thompson," Chen intervened, her voice authoritative. "You were summoned to give a statement, not make accusations." "A statement?" He laughed bitterly. "About how this man kidnapped my stepchildren. About how he's trying to destroy my family. About how you abused 2 innocent children," Ethan retorted, his voice cutting. "About how you took money to cover up Claire's death." Jack's face paled slightly. "You don't know what you're talking about. The bank records say otherwise. Just like the bruises on Lily's arms. You have no proof." "I have all the proof," Ethan cut him off. "Every transfer, every dismissed complaint, every medical record. It's over, Jack. There's nowhere left to run." At that moment, William Morrison burst into the room, followed by 2 officers attempting to restrain him. "What is this circus?" he roared. "Ethan, what the hell do you think you're doing?" "The right thing, Dad. For the first time in my life, I'm doing the right thing. You're destroying this family." "No." Ethan shook his head. "I'm saving one." The next few hours played out like a storm. Jack was formally taken into custody as the evidence of abuse was presented. William Morrison watched, livid, as his son played the recording of his confession. "Traitor," he hissed at Ethan. "After everything I've done for you." "Everything you did," Ethan laughed without humor. "Like abandoning a dead woman on the roadside. Like buying the silence of an abuser." "I gave you everything." "No," Ethan replied quietly. "You taught me to be cold. To value power above all. But those children, they taught me something else. Something better." While William was led away for formal questioning, Ethan found Lily in the special room. She ran into his arms immediately. "He was yelling," she whispered, shaking. "I know, sweetheart, but he can't hurt you anymore. Not ever again. Promise." "I promise." He hugged her tighter. "And this time, it's a promise I can keep." Elena came in, her eyes shining with determination. "Judge Peterson granted our request for temporary custody. The kids stay with you while the case proceeds." Sarah, who was cradling Noah, let out a sigh of relief. "Now what?" Lily asked, her voice small but curious. "Now," Ethan smiled gently, "we go home. Our home." As they left the station, the sun was setting over New York. It had been a long, painful, transformative day. Nothing would ever be the same. For him, for his father, or for Jack, But as Lily fell asleep in his arms in the back seat, and Noah smiled in his sleep, Ethan knew that all the losses, all the pain, had been worth it. The ICE lawyer had finally found something worth melting for, the love of two children who, against all odds, had become his family. "Home?" Sarah asked softly from the passenger seat. "Home," Ethan confirmed, a genuine smile on his lips. The truth had come to light, and with it, the chance for a new beginning, one based not on power or appearances, but on love and honesty. That was all that mattered. That night, in his penthouse, Ethan watched the city through the windows while the children slept. Sarah had stayed to help, occupying the guest room. His phone vibrated with a message from Eleanor. "First hearing set for Monday. Judge Peterson is on our side. William and Jack will be heard separately." Another message, this time from Detective Chen. "We found 2 more of Thompson's victims willing to testify, and your father's recording has been accepted as evidence, despite how it was obtained." Ethan put away his phone, his eyes catching his reflection in the glass. The man staring back at him was no longer the ICE lawyer. He was just a father trying to do right by his children. A soft sound made him turn. Lily stood at the office door, hugging her stuffed rabbit. "You can't sleep?" he asked gently. She shook her head, crossing the room to join him by the window. "I was thinking about Mommy. What do you think she'd say about today?" Lily was quiet for a moment, considering. "I think she'd be happy," she said finally. "She always said truth is like light. It can hurt your eyes at first, but it helps you see the way." Ethan felt his heart clench. "Your mom was very wise." "Ethan," Lily looked at him, her eyes shining in the dim light. "Do you think we can be a real family now?" He knelt to her height. "We already are a real family, Lily. The rest is just paperwork." She smiled, that smile that had melted his defenses from day one. "Can I sleep with you tonight?" "Of course," he answered, picking her up. "Let's get Noah too." As he settled into bed with the 2 children, Ethan thought about all the battles still to come. There would be hearings, testimonies, long and painful proceedings. But there, in that moment, with Lily nestled against his chest and Noah sleeping peacefully by his side, he knew every battle would be worth it. The truth had finally come out, bringing not just justice, but also a chance for healing, for all of them. As night fell over New York, 3 broken hearts were finally beginning to reassemble into something new and precious. A family. The legal process could take months, Elena Martinez explained, arranging a stack of documents on Ethan's desk. "Even with all this evidence in our favor, the system moves slowly." Ethan watched the city through his office windows, thinking how New York felt different now. It was no longer just a battleground for his legal victories. It was the home of his newly formed family. "How long do we have temporary custody for?" he asked, turning to Elena. 3 months initially, with the possibility of extension." She paused. Judge Peterson was impressed by the preliminary reports. The children seemed to be adjusting well. It was true. In the week since the initial hearing, Lily had begun to smile more. Her nightmares had decreased. Noah, now almost a year old, was reaching his developmental milestones with enthusiasm. "What about my father?" "William has requested visitation rights," Elena replied, checking her notes. "Supervised, of course. The decision will be part of the next hearing." Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. His relationship with William was complicated. Since confessing his role in the accident, the decades of tension between them had shifted into something else. Not exactly forgiveness, but maybe the start of understanding. "Mr. Morrison?" Sarah interrupted, entering the office. "Lily is on the phone. Her teacher wants to talk about the spring festival at school." Strange how something so ordinary, a call from school, could make his heart skip. 3 months ago, his only concerns were million-dollar contracts and corporate mergers. "I'll take it at home," he decided, grabbing his jacket. Elena, can we continue tomorrow? The lawyer smiled knowingly. Go. Your family needs you. Family. The word still sounded strange to him, like a half-forgotten song that was slowly returning to memory. At home, he found Lily drawing at the kitchen table while Sarah attempted to feed Noah mashed pumpkin. Dada! Noah exclaimed upon seeing him, splattering orange puree everywhere in his excitement. Hey, buddy, Ethan smiled, wiping the baby's face. How was school, Lily? I'm going to be a flower in the festival, she announced proudly. My teacher said I need a special dress and... Her voice trailed off. Mommy always made my dresses. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken memories. Ethan knelt beside her. How about we ask Sarah to help find the perfect dress, and we can take pictures to keep with your mom's photos? Ever since Elena suggested making a memory album, they had started collecting photos of Claire, stories Lily shared, little fragments of a life cut short too soon. Do you think she'd like that? Lily asked quietly. I'm sure she would, Sarah answered for Ethan. And I bet she'd be very proud to see you dancing in the festival. Ethan's phone vibrated. A message from William. I found some old photos of you in your school performances. I thought Lily might like to see them. It was the first time his father had offered to share anything from the past. Maybe it was a small step, but it was a step. Lily, Ethan said softly, how about we visit Grandpa William this weekend? He has some surprises for you. Her eyes widened. He still lives in that big house with the garden. Yes, and I heard he's planting new flowers. Can I bring Noah? Of course. We're a family, remember? We'll all go together. That night, after the children were asleep, Ethan found Sarah organizing more files for the case. How do we tell her? He asked quietly. About the final hearing. Sarah sighed. Honestly, that's what we've been doing, right? Yes, it was. From the start, they'd promised to be truthful with the children about the case, Jack, everything. It was hard sometimes, but necessary. I got more reports today, Sarah went on. Jack started therapy in prison. He's trying to get better. Good for him, Ethan said flatly. Ethan, she hesitated. He asked to see the kids. No, I agree, but someday Lily might want answers. When that day comes, we'll be ready, he said firmly. But now she needs to feel safe. A soft cry interrupted their conversation. Noah, probably having another restless dream. I'll go, Sarah offered, but Ethan was already standing. No, I got it. My turn. In the children's room, he found not only Noah crying, but Lily sitting up in her bed, hugging her stuffed rabbit. Nightmare? He asked gently. She nodded. About the big car. Ethan picked up Noah, who immediately calmed in his arms, and sat on Lily's bed. Want to talk about it? No, she replied. Then, yes, maybe. A pause. Dad, yes. You're not going away, right? Even after the judge decides. His heart clenched. Never, he promised. You're my family now. Forever. Even if Jack tries to come back. Even then, nothing will change that. Lily snuggled closer to him, Noah already dozing off in his other arm. I think Mommy sent you to us, she whispered. She always said angels show up when we need them the most. Ethan felt tears burn his eyes. Then I'll do my best to be the best angel I can be. They stayed like that for a long time, until Lily also fell asleep. Watching them, Ethan reflected on how life could change in an instant. How the ICE lawyer had melted before the love of two children who needed not his professional coldness, but his open heart. His phone vibrated softly. Another message from William. Had the pool cleaned for the weekend. I remember how much you loved swimming at her age. Ethan smiled, replying with a single word. Thanks. Perhaps that was the real rebuilding. Not just for the children, not just for him, but for all of them. A broken family piecing itself back together, slowly, with the care and patience only love could provide. It was a slow, sometimes painful process, but necessary. As Sarah always said, some things need to break completely before they can be rebuilt stronger. And there, in that room lit only by a star-shaped lamp, Ethan knew they were on the right path. The path home. Later that night, after tucking the children into their own beds, Ethan found a new drawing by Lily on his desk. It depicted a courtroom scene, colorful figures representing all of them, including Judge Peterson and even William in the background. At the top, in her careful handwriting, it read, "My new family." His phone vibrated with a final message from Elena. "Final hearing set for next month. All reports are positive. Rest, Dad. You're doing an amazing job. Dad." The word no longer frightened him. As he stored Lily's drawing in a special folder, Ethan thought of all the transformations of the past months, the ICE lawyer melting, the father he was learning to be, the bridges that were starting to mend. Some things must break to be rebuilt stronger. Some families must be lost in order to be truly found. And sometimes in the darkest nights, you find the brightest light, even if it comes from the smile of a child who chose you as a father. A year had passed since that night at the lake. Ethan Morrison's office was unrecognizable, where once only abstract art and legal awards had been. Now Lily's colorful drawings decorated the walls, and a small playpen occupied a corner so Noah could play while his dad worked. "Mr. Morrison," his new assistant, Jennifer, appeared at the door. "Dr. Martinez is here for the Claire Foundation meeting." Ethan looked up from the documents he was reviewing. No longer corporate contracts, but pro bono family cases needing legal aid. "Send her in. And Jennifer, ask Sarah to bring the kids, please. It's lunchtime." The transformation of the feared ICE lawyer into a devoted father still shocked many in New York's legal world. But those who knew him now could not imagine Ethan any other way. Elena walked in, carrying a thick folder. "Our first-year numbers are impressive," she announced. "The Claire Foundation has assisted over 500 families already. The psychological support program has a waiting list." "We need to expand," Ethan replied, making notes. "Maybe open a second facility in the Bronx. With the money from selling your Aston Martin, we can—" "Da-da," Noah's voice interrupted the meeting, the 18-month-old toddling happily toward Ethan with outstretched arms. "Hey there, champ." Ethan scooped him up, smiling automatically and genuinely. "How was the park?" "He tried to eat sand again," Lily reported, entering the room with Sarah. "But I stopped him." "My hero," Ethan winked at her. "Ready for tomorrow?" Lily's eyes sparkled. Her 6th birthday would be celebrated at the Morrison Mansion's garden, a decision that symbolized more than just a party. "Grandpa William said he has a special surprise," she noted, settling on the sofa with her sketchbook. The relationship between Ethan and his father had evolved slowly over the year. It wasn't perfect, maybe it never would be, but it was real. After completing his rehabilitation program, William had become a present and dedicated grandfather. "Speaking of surprises," Elena remarked, "Judge Peterson called. She wants to attend the inauguration of the new Claire Foundation Support Center." The Claire Foundation had become more than a mere aid organization. It was a legacy, not just for Claire Thompson's memory, but for all families needing a second chance. "I never thought that night at the lake would change everything," Sarah said softly, watching Noah play with Ethan's tie. "Neither did I," he replied, recalling the man he used to be, cold, calculating, alone. "But now I can't imagine life any other way." A small commotion at reception drew his attention. William Morrison stepped into the office, carrying a large envelope. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, still a bit uneasy in this familiar environment, "but I thought Lily might like to see this." It was an old photo album. The yellowed pages revealed a smiling young woman with a small boy by her side. "Is that you, Dad?" Lily asked, fascinated. "And my mother," Ethan confirmed softly. "Your grandmother. She was pretty," Lily observed, touching a photo where the woman smiled straight at the camera. "Like Mommy." "Yes, she was," William agreed, his voice laden with emotion, "and she would have loved to meet you and Noah." Funny how life had its own ways of healing. A year ago, Ethan could barely look at his father without anger. Now, watching William show Lily old pictures while Noah tried to climb his grandfather's legs, he felt something else. Not exactly forgiveness, but understanding. The final custody documents arrived, Elena mentioned discreetly. "Want to sign now?" Ethan glanced at his children because that's what they were now, both officially and in his heart. Lily, engrossed in the old photos, her eyes filled with a curiosity so reminiscent of Claire. Noah, secure and happy, so different from the frightened baby in the boat. "Right now," he replied, picking up a pen. His signature, once so sharp and formal, flowed smoothly on the paper. It was no longer the ICE lawyer's signature, but that of a father. "Done," Eleanor smiled. "Officially and irrevocably, you're the father of Lily and Noah Thompson Morrison." The hyphen had been Lily's idea. "So we can have a little piece of mommy and a little piece of you," she'd explained. "Dad," Lily called, raising her eyes from the album. "Can I take some of these pictures to school? The teacher asked us to talk about our families." "Of course, Princess. How about we pick them out together?" As he helped Lily select the photos, with William occasionally chiming in stories for each one, Ethan thought about how life could change in an instant, how a chance encounter by a lake could set off a series of events transforming not just one life, but many. "Look at this one," William pointed to a particular photo. "It was your first day of school. Your mother had just finished knitting that scarf." "The blue scarf," Ethan exclaimed, suddenly remembering. "It might still be at the mansion somewhere." "In the attic trunk," William confirmed, "along with other memories that," he paused, "that maybe it's time to share." Sarah, observing with a smile, glanced at her watch. "Lunchtime, everyone. How about that Italian place Noah loves?" "Is Grandpa William coming too?" Lily asked hopefully. The two Morrison men exchanged glances. "I'd be honored," William replied gently, as they prepared to leave, now a process involving diapers, toys, and an impressive amount of wet wipes. Ethan noticed a new drawing in Lily's notebook. It was a family tree base, but not the traditional kind. At the top was Claire, her smile forever preserved in Lily's childlike drawing. Below, connected by colorful lines, were all of them: Ethan, Lily, Noah, Sarah, William. Even a small photo of Ethan's mother that Lily had pasted on. "It's for a school project," Lily explained when she saw his interest. "The teacher said families come in all shapes." "It's perfect," Ethan answered, his voice thick. And it was. It wasn't a conventional family. It was broken and mended, made of losses and new beginnings, of choices and second chances. But it was theirs. It was real. It was love. As they walked together to the restaurant, Ethan thought about the man he had been a year ago, the ICE lawyer who measured success in legal victories and bank accounts. That man no longer existed. In his place stood a father who measured success in his children's smiles, in daily small triumphs, in moments of connection and healing. And tomorrow, when Lily blew out the candles on her birthday cake in the Morrison mansion garden, it would be more than just a celebration of turning 6. It would be a celebration of a new dawn, of a family that chose to rebuild itself, of a love that melted the ice and brought springtime. The next morning, the Morrison mansion's garden was transformed. Colorful balloons danced in the gentle breeze, tables adorned with fresh flowers dotted the lawn, and the sound of children's laughter echoed all around. "We did it, Dad," Lily exclaimed, running up to Ethan in her new blue dress. "Look at all the stars." Indeed, William had hired a team to create a canopy of lights over the garden, hundreds of tiny stars that would shine when night fell. "Just like our nightlight," she noted, her eyes gleaming. "Exactly," Ethan agreed, remembering that first night after the lake. Sarah approached with Noah, who wore a small suit matching Ethan's. Judge Peterson just arrived, and Eleanor brought some families from the foundation. The garden filled with people, not just New York's high society, as would have been the case a year ago, but real people, families touched by the Claire Foundation, children freely playing with Lily and Noah. When it was time for the cake, everyone gathered around. William, standing beside Ethan, cleared his throat softly. "Before the candles," he said, his voice brimming with rare emotion, "I'd like to make an announcement." He turned to the crowd. "Starting today, the Morrison Mansion will be the new headquarters for the Claire Foundation, a place where broken families can begin to rebuild." The announcement was met with heartfelt applause. Ethan looked at his father, surprised. "It's time this place was used for something that really matters," William said quietly. "Something your mother would be proud of." Lily, standing in front of her cake, smiled, that smile that had melted Ethan's heart from day one. "Time for a wish, Princess," Ethan said, lighting the candles. She closed her eyes for a moment, then blew with all her might. As everyone cheered, she turned to Ethan. "I didn't need to wish for anything," she whispered. "I already have everything I wanted." And there, under an artificial sky of stars beginning to glow in the dusk, Ethan Morrison, no longer the ice lawyer, but simply a father, knew his daughter was right. Some families are born, others are chosen, but the most special are those rebuilt piece by piece, with love, courage, and the promise of a new dawn.